Make a motion to approve the minutes, public and non-public, April 25th.
A second?
Kevin, second. All right. Any comments, questions, corrections, concerns? It was a very busy meeting.
I did not.
That looked great to me. Yep, captured all that. And just as a note in your packet, there's a follow-up letter, 2 follow-up letters from Chief Porter at Canaan Police Department. One was to the whole entire board. You may have probably saw that in your email. The other one was an email he sent to me. I forwarded it on to Martha to send to you. Just kind of describing the steps forward and how encouraged he was by the discussion we had. So I was happy to hear that. So, all right, no further adjustments. Everything looks good. All those in favor of approving minutes, public, non-public, of 425, signify by saying aye. Aye. Again, opposed, and abstentions. All right. Okay. And coming up next. All right, so next we have public comment. If there's any public comment right now, we will have 2 more opportunities later. So, all right, that said being none, we do a presentation from our auditors, Roberge and Company, PC. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And thank you for inviting me here this evening to present the audit. It's been a while, so my name's Jim Roberge, by the way. I'm the owner of the firm. So what I'd like to do is I do have an outline of what I'd like to go over with you right now. However, I'd like it to be more of a open discussion back and forth. So if you have questions at any time, please feel free to interrupt and ask those questions, and we'll try to address those. Otherwise, I will go through my monotonous presentation of your financial statements and what's in there, and hopefully educate everyone a little bit as to how the whole process works. I'm hoping that you all have either a hard copy or an electronic copy of the financial statements in front of you. So if you want to flip to the page 2, which is the table of contents, I want to go through the financials and let you know how they're constructed and what they look like and what the parts are that are in there. It's a required reporting format that the Governmental Accounting Standards Board requires for the financial statements. So all of these pieces are required pieces, and there's specific requirements in each one of those as well. The first section on there is the Independent Auditors Report. That's where we give our opinion on your financial statements, and until we actually do that, prepare that opinion, the financial statements are your financial statements. We do assist in the preparation of your financial statements. However, they're your numbers. We just put them in that required format. Once we're done with our audit and we do issue this independent auditor's report, then we both become responsible for those financial statements. They're yours, and I'm saying that what you provided me and the opinion that I have is that they're representative of the activity and the balances for your entity as of June 30th, 2022, and for that year ended. So there's actually three pages of auditor's report and opinion in there. Your opinion is a clean opinion, which means that your financial statements are representative of the activity that you reported. The second section in here is what's called management discussion and analysis, and what it is it's the attempt of the GASB, and I'll refer to the GASB because and what it does is it gives you the opportunity to, in a narrative format, describe what happened to your entity for that particular year. However, again, there are 6 required components within that management's discussion and analysis. And basically what it does is it regurgitates the basic financial statements that are listed below that. It regurgitates information from your fund financial statements, and it regurgitates some information from your budget versus actual comparison, which is further on down in these financial statements. So it summarizes, but it also gives you the ability to narrate if you want to put any additional narrative in there to describe certain things. The last section in that MD&A, there's a piece that's called Economic Conditions and Budgeting, and I actually have you prepare all of that information at the same time, or your management prepare that section to describe what you what the economic conditions are that you considered when you were preparing your budget for the subsequent year. At this point, I'm gonna go to the back side of this. So I'm gonna flip down to the bottom, which is your federal award supplementary information. Because you spent more than $750,000 in federal money during the year, you're required to have what's called a single audit. The feds do not want to send auditors out to test your compliance with the federal dollar that you're spending, so they've passed that distinction on to us as auditors to do the compliance work on your federal dollars. So that whole back section there is all of the reports that we have to issue, as well as your schedule of expenditures of federal awards, which we'll take a look at again, and then some other information defining your major programs. We don't test all of your federal dollars for compliance. We test major programs, and that's a quantitative determination based on that $750,000 threshold. Any particular program individually that's over that, we have to test for compliance as a major program. And then if those don't exceed, in your case, 20% of your total federal dollars, then we have to pick some additional programs to test for compliance. So just to give you some perspective, we probably spend more time doing the testing of your federal compliance work than we do the rest of the district. Just because they want us to do all that work, and the dollar amount doesn't make sense. So for, $1.9 million, I think it was, that you spent last year on federal dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, 1.9. We spent as much time as the other $25 million.
Wow.
And it doesn't make sense. There's no big standard, little standard that we can follow. They make everyone do it. So the same procedures that are done in the city of Boston, we have to do for Mascoma School District. So it's kind of silly, but that's what we have to follow. Moving back up, now this is actually the order that you want to look at your financial statements in. There's other supplementary information, which is it's combining schedules for all of your smaller funds. So your grants fund, I think, is a major one, but your food service fund, I think you have a preschool fund, a driver's education fund, and some other non-major funds.
Mm-hmm.
Up in the front, they're all lumped together in one column called non-major funds. Out in the back, you can see the detail on all of those. So that's what that other supplementary information is. If you move up one more section to the required supplemental information, the budget comparison schedule for your general fund is in there. That's the one you would probably be most useful to you. It identifies your estimated revenues versus what you actually received, and your actual expenditures versus what you appropriated for that year. And it's reported on a budgetary basis, so it matches exactly how you budgeted those things. So that gives you, kind of a picture that you look at and you say, hey, I recognize what these are. It's by function, so you don't have all the detail, but you should be able to recognize them. And then as you move up to the basic financial statements, you've got fund financial statements, which are kind of on a budgetary basis, but not really. But those also show your general fund. It shows your any other major funds, which in your case is your grants fund, and it shows your non-major funds in total. And then one more step up under the basic financials is the government-wide financials. That takes everything else down below, lumps it all together, adds to it all of your long-term assets and your long-term liabilities. Your long-term assets are all your capital assets, net of any depreciation, and your long-term liabilities are any general obligation debt that you have, along with any compensated absence liability that you may have, capital leases, and two other significant items that are in there, which are OPEB obligations and net pension liability obligations. No, OPEBs are other post-employment benefits, basically health insurance benefits that are provided to retirees. I think you have a small, what we call explicit plan, where you actually do pay for some health benefits for retirees, but the majority of it is what we call an implicit rate subsidy. It's the difference between what your active members and your retired members' premiums are. And again, the GASB in their infinite wisdom says that the difference that you pay for your active members is actually an implicit subsidy, because it would be less if you used a a non-blended rate, an age-adjusted rate for your premiums. And they require you to record a liability for that, which is what I 100% disagree with, because there is no liability if you ceased operations as of December 31st. You already paid your premiums, employees and retirees have gotten all of their health benefits, and you don't owe anyone anything. But they require, an actuary to put those numbers together, and we have to put that liability in there. But again, we'll take a look at those. Everyone okay with how your financials are set up now?
Yep.
That's basically it. You go from back to front. It's sometimes easier to read, but those are all the required components, and they're all in there. Budgetary differences. If you want to flip back to the budgetary comparison, these are just some highlights that I wanted to point out. And that is back on page, I wrote it down here somewhere.
58.
It's 58, there you go. See, that's right on that. This is the one where I said that it'll make a lot of sense to you, because I know we focus on budget, and a lot of times we focus on just the appropriation side of our budget. Revenue side has as much effect on your fund balance if we don't collect what we anticipate. So it's really important to make sure that you do monitor your revenue side as well as your expenditure side. Up top under your budgetary fund balance, you budgeted to use $1.3 million in your fund balance last year. You actually had 1.6 available to use, so it shows a positive variance there. That's just because you now have the ability to maintain some fund balance, which school districts didn't used to do. You used to have to give it all back in your rate setting. So it shows a positive variance there, but you really did still use $1.3 million in fund balance. Down on the bottom side, you were $1 million under expended, and most of that came from instruction, both regular education and special ed instruction. It gives you a budgetary fund balance, ending fund balance of $1.5 million, okay? That's made up of 3 different items. The only piece that's available for rate settings, the unassigned piece, would be $1.2 million. You have $52,000 that you encumbered for open purchase orders or commitments that you had with some vendors. And you also voted $180,000 to use from your fund balance to put in your capital reserve for the current year. So of the 1.5 million, 1.2 is really your unassigned fund balance that you use probably for your rate setting purposes for this year. Now we're going to move all the way back up to our fund-based financials, which start on page 24. And your financials usually basically comprise of 2 different sets of financial statements. You have your balance sheet, which shows you your balances and your assets and liabilities and your fund balance as of a certain date and time. And then 2 pages later, you have your operating statement or your statement of revenues and expenditures, which shows you where all of your revenues and expenditures came from for that particular period. On the balance sheet side, page 24, if you look down at your fund balance section in the bottom, you have a committed fund balance of $1,091,000. That's made up of your capital reserves, which are $911,000 as of June. I keep saying December, June 30th of 22, and the $180,000 that you voted from surplus at district meeting. So that's where that $1,091,000 comes from. The 52 are your encumbrances, and then there's your $1.2 million of unassigned fund balance. If you look at the 4th column over, the non-major governmental funds, if you want to see the detail on that, then that's when you go back to the back section, your supplemental information starting on page 67, which will show you the individual smaller funds that make up that non-major column. The reason why this is significant is because when we do our testing, we have to do our testing based on opinion units. So each of the columns listed here is a separate opinion unit that we're testing. So all the non-major funds are considered one opinion unit. So we basically use one materiality for those instead of trying to use a smaller materiality for all the little individual ones, because they're just not that significant overall. We flip to page 26, which is your revenues and expenditures. Your revenues here are $27 million for last year for your general fund only. 19 million was made up of your assessments. Another 7.5 million was from state aid and state sources. So for us to test your revenues, we've tested probably 95% of your revenues just by looking at the rate setting worksheets that come from DRA, which says here's the amount that this school district has to get. So revenues aren't difficult to test. They're actually pretty easy. Your grants funds, revenues have to match your expenditures because you're on an expenditure reimbursement basis. So you spend the money first and then you get reimbursement. So we test the expenditures, but we know your revenue has to be the same amount. If it's not, it means that we probably haven't billed the state for some of our grant expenditures yet. And that's usually the case because if you flip back to your balance sheet again for just 1 second, you'll notice under the grant fund that there was 195,000 due from other governments. That's probably your June reimbursement request. Okay, and the same thing with the food service on that same page. There's $233,000 due from the state. Probably maybe April, May, and June lunch reimbursements, which are a little slower to come back in. But that's where your lunch receivable comes from. Down on the expenditure side. On your statement of revenues and expenditures, as you can see, most of it is instruction. We have some support services. We probably could, support general admin and executive administration could probably lump those all into support. Your general administration, I believe, is probably the SAU piece. And, no, I'm sorry, that was school board expenditures. Executive administration is your SAU, administration, operation and maintenance plant, all of those type of items are all lumped into that $6 million. The payroll on those is probably 70 to 75% of that. Okay, so when we do our testing and we're testing payroll, we basically test all of it. We make some selections to look at individual transactions, but we test all of your payroll expenditures by agreeing what you reported for expense to your payroll system gross payroll numbers. At the same time, we'll also reconcile your health insurance expense that goes along with those payrolls, your FICA, your retirement. Those are all easily calculated, so we test all of those. So, we've tested 70% of your expenditures here just by testing your payroll items. Down bottom, you've got debt service expenditures, 700, almost 800,000 in principal and another 700,000 in interest. We agree those to your debt maturity schedules. We confirm those with whoever the lenders are. So there's a significant amount that we tested when we do the testing of your numbers. Your net change in fund balance on that page is $197,000 shortfall, which means that you ate into your available fund balance from the prior year. If you looked at your budgetary comparison, you saw that you were $1 million under expended and you had additional estimated revenues. You're going, well, why did our fund balance go down? Well, because we used fund balance to offset the assessment. So if we had collected everything we anticipated and spent everything that we had appropriated, we still would have lost 1.3 million in fund balance because that's what we used to offset the assessment. Does that make sense? We're using fund balance as a revenue item, but it's not reported as a revenue. It's just going to be reduced by that amount because we spent more than we anticipated we were going to collect. Okay? And it's good that you have the fund balance available because you can level your assessment by using fund balance however you need to. So, in years that your appropriations go up and you have a fund balance available, you can just increase the amount you use in order to level your assessment a little bit if you want to. Okay, we've gone from budgetary up to fund-based. Now we're going to move up 2 more pages to page 22 and 23. And these here are what we call our government-wide financial statements. Again, GASB, I think it was back in the 80s now. I'm kind of dating myself, but that's when they implemented GASB statement number 34, which everyone calls the capital asset statement because they thought that that's the time that they had to start keeping track of all the capital assets, your buildings and your equipment and your vehicles. But it really was a whole, what they call a financial reporting model change. What they did was that's when they created this 3 layers of different financial statements within your financial statement package and made that a requirement. Prior to that, you used to keep track of what they called capital asset groups and long-term debt groups. You'd have financial statements, but on the side, you say, here are all our assets we have, in addition to this financial statements, and here's all our liabilities we had, in addition to these financial statements. Now they integrated them all, and that's where these government-wide financial statements come into play, is that you take all of your governmental funds, your general fund, your lunch fund, your grants funds, the other governmental funds that you have. It would not include any fiduciary funds if you were holding money for someone else, because it's not available for expenditure for that government, but it does include all of the other ones. And then we add to it your capital assets and your long-term debt. So on the statement of net position here, which is basically your balance sheet, page 22, you'll see up in the top there are capital assets, which is land and improvements, and other capital assets, $197,029 million. Though that's the total of all of your capital assets, net of any accumulated depreciation. So you do it like a regular business. It's on the full accrual method of accounting. So you do keep track of depreciation. So that's the piece that was added up in the asset side. Down in the liability side, you can see there's your bonded debt, $16 million. You have severance obligations which come from your collective bargaining agreements of about $670,000. You have an energy improvement lease that you still have some outstanding balance on of $900,000. And then the last 2 big ones, other than the bonded debt, you've got your post-employment benefit obligations, $5 million. Most of that is that implicit rate subsidy that we talked about, where it has to be said that you're subsidizing your active members because you're paying more than you should have. That's an actuarial determination, extending it out to however long, using whatever discount rates and estimates that they use. And they're saying that over time you would owe $5 million, discounted back to current day dollars, which I don't think you could. All right. And then the next one, that is the net pension liability. That is your proportionate share of the state of New Hampshire retirement system's unfunded liability. So, and it's based on your contributions. So if you take your contributions for the year, divided by the contributions of all the members of the retirement system, that's your percentage of the unfunded liability. And back in the footnote somewhere, it tells you what that percentage is. It's probably 0.7835% or something like that. So it tells you how big the retirement system's unfunded liability is. I did forget to mention, in the post-employment benefit obligation, there is also your proportionate share of the New Hampshire retirement system's medical subsidy that they were giving. So it's calculated the same way. When you contribute to the retirement system, your employer's portion, a piece of it is for that medical subsidy and a piece of it is for your pensions. Your proportionate share of that pension unfunded medical subsidy piece is included in that $5 million as well. Okay, and it's calculated the same way, your percentage of your contributions. That one should start to go now because they've eliminated that benefit, but everyone that's grandfathered in is still receiving it. That came about when the retirement system was actually making money, and it didn't have a huge unfunded liability. And they said, we're going to take all this extra money and put it in a special fund, and now we're going to pay health insurance for retirement. So, when the economy turns around, and now we're not making as much as we anticipated on our investments in the retirement system, we now not only have an unfunded net pension liability, but we're still paying this medical subsidy to people. So it created quite a problem, and that's why your rates have continued to go up, along with the state not wanting to fund their piece. But I think they did give you a little bit back last year. I think they gave like 7% or something. And there's talk that they're going to try and get some of that back in there. I was at a GFOA conference last week, and New Hampshire Municipal Association representative was telling us that there is legislation for them to get, can start contributing back to the retirement system again, but it depends on how well the state's going to do.
Believe it when I
We'll
see it.
keep our fingers crossed for that. Okay.
Cool.
That's the highlights on your financials. Just a quick little narrative on what we do for testing. I mean, we test all of your cash numbers. We take your bank recs. We test your outstanding items. We confirm your bank balances with the bank. We did not find any issues there. With your receivables, we agree the receivable list that you give us to subsequent cash receipts that we see come through the bank. But again, most of yours receivables you have are, you don't do any billings other than reimbursements to the state for your grants and reimbursements to the state for your lunch program meals for free and reduced. So there's not an awful lot of receivables that you have out there. Your general fund receivables are minimal. Versus a district that does a lot of tuitioning, and they're billing other school districts for kids that are tuitioned into your districts. You don't have an awful lot of that. On the accounts payable side, you don't have significant account payables. I think, let's put a note on here. Your food service fund owed for the balance on your contract with Fresh Fix for your cafe services. And your general fund, there was a significant one in there, I forget what, I think it's your special ed providers. For some reason, they're notoriously late in getting bills out. So you had $331,000 in payables at the end of the year. A lot of that was from a couple of different special ed vendors that provide services for you. And we test those by looking at disbursements in your subsequent period after June 30th. We actually look at the invoices and we see, okay, these invoices that we paid, when did we receive that good or service from these vendors? And if it was for a service that we received prior to June 30th, we expect to see it on your accounts payable list. So, we test all of those. Again, it's not a significant number overall, but that's how we test that. The revenues we went over, we test 95% of your revenues. So those aren't really hard. On the expenditure side, we just did discuss that a little bit. Most of it's payroll. We do actually do some transaction work, select some individual employees, make sure that their contracts agree to the amount that they were paid for the year. If you accrue their payroll, do you accrue pay or do you pay it all June 30th? I forget.
Pay it all up.
You pay it all, okay. So, it doesn't make sense from a cash flow purpose or for payroll tax deposit purposes to pay all of those checks at the end of the year. A lot of places will actually accrue the payroll and then they'll cut summer checks for those people that have elected 26 pays during the year. But it's entirely up to you as to how you do that. But you don't have any accrued payroll really because it would only be any hourly employees that might have worked for the last couple of days in June that didn't get paid till July. So there's not an awful lot there. And your debt service payments are your only other big ones. And any other contracts that you may have, we look at those. So we're testing, we were looking at the number, we test 85% of your total expenditures. So your general fund, regular revenues and expenditures, we test the heck out of. And we're audited every 3 years too, and they always tell us that. They say, you guys do way too much testing. What they want us to do is look at your numbers from 1 year to the next and say, does it look reasonable? I don't feel comfortable doing that at all. I don't feel comfortable telling you that your financial statements are reasonable by just, doing some analytic review and comparing numbers from year to year. So we test an awful lot because it makes us feel better. So we're actually doing more than they expect us to. On the grant compliance side, this is where all of your focus should be, I think, right now, because that's where all of the regulatory bodies' focuses are. And what they want to do is they want to make sure that you're spending their federal dollars in accordance with the way that they want them spent. Not only do they want that, but they want you to make sure you have controls in place at your entity to make sure that you're complying with the compliance requirements. You have done that here, and the Department of Education was actually very good and very proactive at helping you out in that respect, because what they did was they went through all of the federal compliance requirements for you, and they said, here are the written policies and procedures that are required by the federal compliance requirements that you have to have in place. And they wrote those up and they shipped them all out, and you edited them and you adopted those policies. Yours were under a DAF policy for federal grant programs. And so that was very helpful, because if I came in and you didn't have the written policy in place, even though you were doing it, we'd have to write you up and say you weren't in compliance. So that was very helpful. What we're finding now is that we're receiving a lot of federal dollars where it just showed up in your bank account. You didn't apply for it, all right? You didn't have a grant application. There were no specific requirements to use that money. It just showed up in your account, and then you had to figure out what you were going to do with it. Well, unfortunately, the regulatory agencies for those dollars, whether it's the U.S. Department of Treasury, the U.S. Department of Education, U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, they got caught also because they didn't have anything in place. The legislature said, hey, COVID hit, we're going to send out COVID money. Hey, we got this new ARPA money that we're going to send out, came out after January of 22 or something like that. U.S. Treasury, why don't you go figure out how to regulate that now? So all of this money was coming out without any of the regulations in place to let people know how it was supposed to be used. I know with the ARPA money, some school districts did some significant renovations, put in windows and those type of things, and then they were subsequently told, oops, that's not allowed. And then they were subsequently told again afterwards, oh yes, that was allowed. So it's like, you know, everyone was back and forth on what they could and could not do with these. My point is, we just have to be diligent in making sure that we do a couple of things. Provide the education to our management so that they know what's going on with these. Any education courses that are out there that deal with these things, have to give them the opportunity to go to those. And to make sure that you do have the controls in place. Just a quick example of how this all works. For a program that's considered major, whether it's over your $750,000 threshold or under it, but we had to pick it to test, the Office of Management and Budget issues what they call a compliance supplement every single year, which has all of the federal programs listed in it by CFDA number, or what they now call assistance listing number. That CFDA number, for example, Title I is 84010. You go to 84010 in your compliance supplement, and it says, here's all the compliance requirements for that program. And it also tells, there's 12 specific compliance requirements for every single program. Allowable activity, allowable cost, cash management, procurement and suspension and debarment, period of performance, reporting, eligibility, and special requirements. And in that compliance supplement, they tell you, here are the 6 that we think are requirements that are specific to that program that you have to test for. Some don't apply, like subrecipient monitoring might not apply because you don't sub-grant any of your money to anybody else. So we have to go through all of those things. You have to have your internal controls in place for each one of those specific compliance requirements that apply to that program, and you have to make sure that you comply with all the requirements in that program. And we have to test those. So that's why it's such a long consuming process for us to test a small dollar amount in your entity, because that's what we have to go through. And it's for every program. If you only had 10 programs and they were all small, and we needed to test 40% of yours because you aren't a low-risk auditee, and it ended up being 5 programs, I'd have to go through that for 5 different programs, identify the specific compliance requirements for each, test your controls and your compliance for each one of those. Last year you had 8 different programs. Some of them are considered clusters, like all of your child nutrition programs, your school breakfast, national lunch, and commodities are all considered one cluster under the child nutrition program. You have Title I, you have IDEA, which is made up of your IDEA grant and your preschool grants. Those are also considered a cluster. And then you had 4 other ones. One of the other big ones being the Education Stabilization Fund. It wasn't big enough here to be considered a major program, so we didn't test that, but they basically gave you that money and said, here, do whatever you want with it. The compliance rate, the requirements on that as to what you could spend it on was pretty wide open. And most of yours are spent on payroll. So payroll is an allowable cost for almost every single one of these programs. What they really focus on is that if you're spending it on payroll, that you make sure that you can account for the time that was charged to that grant. So if it's an individual that's working on Title I and they're contracted to work on Title I 100% of the time, great. All you have to do is twice a year you have to fill out a form that says the employee has to sign it saying I work on that program 100% of the time, and you need a supervisor that has direct knowledge of them working on Title I to say yes, they did work on this program 100% of the time, and that's easy. All the benefits go along with it as well. If you have somebody that works on more than one what they call cost center, part of their time they're working on Title I and part of their time they're working on something else. You can't just budget 50% and say that's what we're going to charge for the grant. The compliance requirements say that you have to have time and attendance reporting. You define that however you want. All right, they give you a lot of specifics in there, but basically you'd have to do timesheets to say I work 50% of my time each day on this program and 50% of my time on either a general fund program or another program. But all of this stuff is in this compliance supplement, and it's in the Code of Federal Regulations that goes along with these. We rely an awful lot on the state of New Hampshire. And sometimes what they tell you may not be in compliance with what the actual federal regulation is. So you just have to be real diligent in allowing your people to gain the knowledge to know what the federal side of it is, as well as what the state of New Hampshire says what you can do with these things. Okay. We issue 2 reports. They're not really opinions, they're reports that go along with the federal dollars. One is in accordance with government auditing standards. There's a whole bunch of government auditing standards. They call it the Yellow Book, if you've ever heard that name. And it just says that as auditors we have to report on internal control and we have to report on compliance, and that's what we do here. There's also what's called the Uniform Guidance. This is under the federal regulations. Same thing though. It says we want you to do some work on internal control, and we want you to do some work on compliance, and then give opinions on that, or reports on that. Basically, the reports say that we're not doing it to report on it. I mean, we're looking at internal control enough to design our tests, but we're not giving you any opinion. If we did find something that was significant, we would report it to you, which we have not done. So overall, our testing of your regular financial statements, we didn't identify and have any findings on anything. And also on your grant compliance, we did not have any findings. So those are called unmodified opinions. Those are good opinions. Are there things that we find while we're doing this that maybe need to be corrected? Yes, we do. A lot of times it's in the long-term assets and liabilities that needed to be added to get to your government-wide financial statements. So we might say, hey, you forgot to pick up this capital asset. We looked at your expenditure, we saw what you bought on your truck, but you didn't put it on your capital asset listing. Management usually says, yep, I agree with you, we make the adjustment. So there are some things that we find, but it's not because of irregularity or an intentional misstatement. We have to make that judgment. And if management says, yeah, I agree with you, and they make the adjustment, we just say, okay, make the adjustment, we'll put it in here. So your financials are representative of what they would be, or should be. Any questions?
Yeah, thank
Sure,
you so
had
much.
lots of questions.
So good news overall. We're
Yes.
in compliance.
Good
We're,
news.
everything I saw is, Mascoma is in compliance, comply with this, comply with that. So that sounds really good. Hats off to Rob and Deb, who was with us before, setting everything up. So and everybody for making sure the timesheets are right, and, you know, it's everybody here, so. Any questions? Yeah, go
I
ahead,
have a
Devin.
question. So you were talking about the assets and the investments. And this district has investments that are part of one of the towns. Canaan holds those funds. But do you see those funds when you're doing your work?
Are you referring to capital reserve money that's being held?
Yeah.
And so Canaan is the town that's responsible for holding the Mascoma Valley's.
Yeah, because we have to pick a town to have a trustee of the trust funds, and so
Correct.
it's with Canaan, yeah.
Okay. So yes, we confirm with the trustees what the balances are in those capital reserves, and we read through your minutes to see whether you authorize any additions into those capital reserves, whether or not you authorize any withdrawals from those capital reserves, and that can be a little difficult because it depends on whether you have been designated as agents on those funds or not. If you're designated as agents, district meeting has to vote withdrawal. If you are the agents, then you as a board can withdraw from those capital reserves without going back to the district meeting. But yes, we do look at those. We simply confirm with the trustees as to what the balances are and what the activity is. So that's all recorded in your financials. And it's in your general fund because that's what the standards, where the standards say it has to be reported, because it's internally generated dollars. It's typically from assessments where you then vote to put that money into capital reserve. So they're holding it on your behalf, and actually I can show you that if you want to see it. Let's go back to your balance sheet, page 24. And up in the top, under the asset section, the second item down, $911,000, is held by trustees. And that's how it's designated in your financials. I mean, we could call it receivable, you could call it a cash, but it's not, you're not holding the cash, you're not holding the investment, however it's invested. So we just simply report it here as an amount held by the trustees.
So that amount, which we don't know if it's a gain or a loss because there's nothing for us to look at from the previous audit.
Correct. Your management can ask them to report monthly if you like.
Ah, there we go.
Absolutely.
Yes,
It's your dollars. You can ask trustees anytime you
All right,
want to
that
give you a
sounds
report.
I can respond to that.
Yeah.
You should be getting the capital reserve report from the business administrator monthly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We do.
that shows you the income that you're making on that investment.
That particular investment?
Yes, that's what that
Does
spreadsheet
it
shows
have
you.
its own line item number?
Yep.
Should have.
Each capital reserve is a separate line, and it shows you the management fees that you're paying, and then the income that is generated
Okay.
for the year to date.
The trustees are required to keep those in separate accounts.
I believe they do.
For
Yeah.
liquidity purposes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I know some do have them in, some mutual fund type investments, but as long as they're liquid and they can get them out at any time, and they're separately identified, I think that's okay.
Because when the market fluctuates, we don't know what those investments are doing.
Right. But remember, they're your investments. And if you want to know what they are, request from the trustees that they let you know what's going on with those.
All right, then.
It's your money. Once you give it to them, it doesn't become their money. It's still
Right,
your
right.
money.
They're
Right.
stewards of it, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Any
But
other-
we do test those, we look at those, and if there was a loss on the investment, it would show in your general fund as a loss on investments in your financials. Not in your general ledger system that you're keeping track of, but in the financials, because that's something that's actually added on once a year,
Yes.
the capital reserves monies.
Right.
But yeah, you should be able to get monthly reporting on those.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I was hoping to hammer
Yeah.
one thing out.
Yeah, go ahead.
A couple things. One is, in terms of assessing our overall health of the school district, I would think there would be certain critical indicators that we're looking for in here. And so I was wondering if you could point to the report that would point us to those. I would think one of them would be if we're looking for expenditures exceeding revenues, that kind of thing. And then in the OPEB thing, I think it said that we had a .03, the ratio of
The percentage of your contribution.
Yes,
Yep.
and that looked low to me, and I don't really know any, I mean, that was just my first guess,
Yeah.
that, well, shouldn't, I mean, one would be it's equal to
Yeah.
others, so.
Unfortunately, that government-wide statement of net position is really hard to read because you have that New Hampshire retirement system net pension liability in there. You have the medical subsidy piece in there, so it makes your net position look negative.
Yeah, I saw that, the explicit, no, explicit, but,
Yeah, so your unrestricted net position is a negative $20 million, meaning that your liabilities exceed your assets by $20 million.
right.
Does it indicate your health? I don't think it does in this situation because it's something that's outside of your control. It's the retirement system. And some municipalities have said, well, why don't we just make our contribution to get rid of that liability? Well, you're a cost-sharing retirement system. So if you put $15 million into the New Hampshire retirement system, it would get absorbed by everybody else, and you would still pick up your percentage of that liability. You'd be contributing for everyone else. It doesn't, so you don't ever want to do that.
Every other school district probably has the same line on their
Absolutely.
audits,
They all
with,
do.
if they're a bigger district, a much bigger number, right?
This has thrown almost everyone into a negative net position unrestricted number. For you to look at probably your fund-based financials, your revenues and expenditures, I think would give you a good indication, because you're relying on fund balance all the time. And fortunately now you have the ability to maintain some fund balance, which we talked about, give you some flexibility in your assessments. I mean, you lost $197,000 in fund balance last year. Well, that really was good because you were expecting to lose $1.3 million in fund balance based on your budget and how you assessed your rate. So you actually did well for that year. But I think that's probably where you want to look to, is, look to your statement of revenue and expenditures in your general fund. And for you, you're receiving probably monthly reports on revenues and expenditures, budget versus actual. That's where you want to monitor, because again, it's very simple. I say that. But from a theoretical standpoint, if you received every dollar that you estimated and you spent every dollar that you were appropriated, whatever you used for your fund balance to level that assessment for the year would be how much your fund balance would go down. Okay? But that's on a budgetary basis. We report on an actual basis. So on an actual basis, you actually spent $197,000 more than you reported in revenue for the year. But in your case, it's good because you thought you were going to lose $1.3 million.
So is that something year to year, like we basically can have a 2-year snapshot in here, because you show the prior year and this year. Do we need to see what it looks like over time, more than 2 years, or do we just look year to year? In terms of determining health, but, I mean, you're saying it's healthy for this year, but like a longer term look.
Yeah. Your fund balance is going to tell you that. If you start going into a negative fund balance, then that's when you want to be concerned. Because that means overall, you don't have enough assets to pay for your liabilities that you have outstanding. Okay.
And then
yes, if you wanted to do a multi-year comparison, have management put that together for you, and you could kind of see each year as to where you stand. But you've had positive fund balance, every single year,
Yeah,
and you've
right.
been able to use that to level your assessment, so that you didn't have peaks and valleys in your
Right.
assessment, and that indicates to me that you're healthy.
Right. Good. Then this internal control issue, I guess.
Yeah.
So the way I read what you kind of repeated over in this report was that, as you're doing the audit, you are bumping into internal controls, and you are seeing that they're there for, like you were talking about, for the grant program.
Yeah.
I mean, and you can see that they're in place, you can see that, but you don't give an opinion as to the overall internal controls.
No,
And
we
then-
would identify for you if we saw a significant.
If you saw a
weakness.
problem, you would say, and you had, like, this is a problem,
Yes,
fix it, okay.
yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily show up in here, it just sort of gets done as you're
It would be
fixing
in a separate report
Okay,
if we identify those.
yeah,
For example, I mean, disbursements, internal control over disbursements. You have a whole ordering process, and then you have a whole authorization process where when goods or services are received and before they're paid for, they're reviewed by one individual, they actually go to the board, which is what we rely on, and you sign off on the manifest saying, yes, these are okay to pay, and then your treasurer does not pay those until they get that commitment from the board to pay and that authorization. So those are internal controls, and a lot of those are statutorily driven. The Hampshire statute identifies treasurer's roles and responsibilities. It identifies board's roles and responsibilities, and they include a lot of those controls in there. So because probably 95% of your activity is cash driven, whether you either disperse money or you receive money, most of those controls are in place to handle those things. So the other controls are the internal control over compliance, which just means, okay, we have to look at what the feds want us to do with this, and we have to make sure that somebody that has knowledge of that program is looking at those transactions. But again, it goes back to the cash transactions. It's mostly disbursements that we're looking at, where we have to implement controls to make sure the disbursements are being done in compliance with whatever the federal requirement is. And you have those, and you have the written policies. Does that mean you're following them? It doesn't mean that they're working, but in your case, we haven't seen where they aren't working, where they aren't being implemented.
but that's what you won't give an opinion on, right?
Yes,
That's
we
the
would
part you
give it
say, we don't give an opinion on that.
right, we wouldn't give you an opinion. We would say that we believe that there's a significant weakness in this control step, and we believe that you have to address it. Otherwise, there may be errors, there may be irregularities that you will not find.
But we don't see that in this report.
No,
Okay,
no. We don't tell, we only tell you when you're doing bad.
yeah.
We don't tell you when you're doing good.
So do other districts do something in addition to, there's, I think it's NHSBA, it talks about the proper, what you're talking about, but it also says your board may want to get the advice of experienced accountant to determine whether suitable controls are in effect, which is what I'm hearing on top of this, has nothing to do with this.
Correct.
And in your experience, do other districts do that, or should
Well,
we
you're-
be doing it, or is it a size issue, that kind of thing?
Well, your schools have been around for a long time, and
Yeah.
there are policies that the boards have adopted that are in place. That's where your controls are. Your policies and procedures that you've adopted are your internal controls that you're following. You have procurement policies that you're supposed to follow. Those are your internal controls. We just identify if we don't see them in place, or if we don't see them operating properly, which can happen. I mean, you can have the policy, but unless someone's monitoring that policy and making sure that it's actually operating, it doesn't mean anything, you just have to write it.
So I guess I'm trying to calculate, do we need to do something in addition to
You
what we're
need to
doing?
revisit your policies every year, probably.
And then how do we get that next feedback loop that you're saying, that,
From who?
are they being followed? When it's not in here, that, you would catch that in the audit.
You would catch it if we had a major deficiency in our
Right.
internal
In our
controls,
fund
whether
balance.
we weren't,
Yeah.
either we weren't following our own protocols and policies,
Okay.
or
If
if,
your policy
yeah.
said that you need to have a purchase order and 3 levels of approval on every purchase over $5,000, and you weren't doing that, then we would tell you, hey,
You
your
would
policy
find that.
says you're supposed to approve. Does it mean that it wasn't properly approved? No, it might still have gone through, and here again is the kicker. It all goes through you as a board, and when you sign off on a manifest, which I assume you've been signing off on the manifest, and you look at them, you're saying that those things there have gone through the proper authorization process before they got to us, and we're now telling the treasurer that they can send off those checks. So we rely an awful lot on those board signatures on those manifests, because that's your control as a governing body.
Do other districts do something above and beyond this in terms of their internal control?
No, they might have
They know.
documented a little bit better in
No,
their
I mean,
policies.
like in terms of going out to a outsourcing another audit.
So,
so to
okay,
speak.
so you're looking at someone coming and doing either a performance audit or an internal control
Yes.
audit or something like that?
Yes.
No, I don't see, unless they have a problem, I don't see any of our clients that have done that.
If you had done this report and found like, several internal controls that really could have used an overhaul or a tweak or something like that, then we might be in a good position to have someone audit our internal controls.
Yes.
But you're not finding any big red flags that are
No.
popping up or anything
No,
like that.
but I mean, you could do that.
We could, yeah.
Some people have performance audits done, but, that's going through and saying, okay, you bought some equipment and you're purchasing insurance on it. Is it really feasible to have to purchase insurance on, Chromebooks when the Chromebook costs $200 and you're buying $10 of insurance for each one? And, that's the performance audits can get into that type of detail and look for cost efficiencies for you. It's not what you're talking about, having someone come in and look at your internal control, but you could have someone come in and do a control study to see if yours are okay. I would tell you if I thought that there were significant weaknesses, but I'm not doing an internal control study to say whether or not they're designed properly, whether they're functioning properly, and whether or not they're being monitored.
So really, that would kind of fall back on the school board and the finance committee,
Yes.
pretty much.
If we wanted to do a further audit, then, yeah.
Yeah.
And this is like, we are not responsible for it, you guys are, to make sure those are being followed as stated in your policies. We'll see them, but it's management and
Yeah,
school board.
absolutely, yes. Yep. Yeah, and I think if you look through the audit opinion, you look through our base letter, it goes through the responsibility of the
Oh, I
auditor
did, yeah,
and
yeah.
management. Yeah,
It's all management.
It's all management.
All management,
Yes, yeah. And we're pushing it back on you, and we're saying, we're just reporting on your financial statements. We're not coming in to make sure that you guys are doing your job. We're just saying the financial statements are representative of what happened in that entity for that year.
Gotcha.
But again, I think we as a firm, do an awful lot more to make sure that your financials are even better than what our standards say we have to do. And if we did identify any weaknesses in your control system, sometimes we might, and we discuss it. We might see where, hey, the treasurer is coming in, but yet we're using an electronic signature and they're not keeping their own set of books, and we really think that, you might want to beef that up and get them to be more active. Does it mean that, there's significant risks there? Probably not, because we're going through all of these other steps. There's so many other eyes looking at things, and so many other approvals before it gets to the treasurer that they really have become almost a rubber stamp. And we were talking earlier that technology has made this very, very difficult because there are so many electronic transactions that take place now that the treasurer never even sees them. We do payroll tax deposits, we do electronic transfers for our debt service. We're paying our bills through a third-party payer now. We just give them all the money and then they ship it out. And we don't know whether the vendors have got it or not. There's so much going on out there that technology is becoming the internal control, which is something almost out of our control because we're relying on software to do it.
I hope it's right. Yeah.
And then you've got AI coming.
That's right.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, and you've got these chat bots where they write all the kids' papers for them.
I'll write some policy. Cool. Any more questions from anybody?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming out and sharing this with us and really explaining this. And I know I've been on the board 8 years and never had this detailed of an explanation. Like I've read them in the past, but it helps to have your explanation. So I appreciate that. It is open for public comment. Is there any questions or comments? Mr. Kiley, go ahead.
So I guess what you're saying is you wouldn't recommend that, say, every 3 to 5 years an internal control audit be done?
I am not making a recommendation either way.
Right. So what I'm saying is, by reading the opinion, it says, we're not checking for compliance, we're checking for non-compliance.
Correct.
So if there isn't compliance and you don't find it, it doesn't mean there isn't compliance.
We're checking for both.
Yeah.
Checking for both.
But you know what I mean? You're basically saying,
Yeah.
we looked at to see if you had non-compliance as opposed to compliance. So I guess what I'm asking is, would it be worth doing one every 3 to 5 years? So every 3 to 5 years, we might get one that says, we also checked for compliance and you were in compliance with your policy.
I'd like to say, I don't think you need to unless you have a concern, but it's kind of like a conflict of interest for you
Right.
to do that.
I know. That's why, I guess I'll get back to where I was. As a controller, I didn't want an internal control audit, but when I became a CEO, I did.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I'm saying, is that if the
Right.
board feels that there's some need for that, then they probably should. If they don't, and they're happy with how things are running, and they know
Yeah.
that we've done a financial audit, and we haven't identified any significant control issues
Right.
as part of that financial audit, then, maybe they might not want to have it done.
Okay.
But yeah, you're
That's all.
exactly correct. From both,
Yeah.
it depends on which side you're looking at it.
So,
from.
but what side of the fence you were on at the time?
Deb, go ahead.
But there are plenty of other audits that are done besides the financial audit. So the New Hampshire DOE, they have people, Tim Carney, and I can't think of her name, Jessica, they have come in and done an audit on our federal grants compliance. So if you've approved the policies, all the policies that are required for the federal grants, you've done your job. And then they come in and they double check on all that too. Food service is also very, very into everything that we do with those funds. So those, there are all kinds of checks and balances that are happening. So I don't think there's a need for it right now. But the other thing I wanted to say is I wanted to thank Jim for coming and explaining all this. Nobody's ever asked me any questions about the audit specifically over the last 8 years. I also want it to be in the minutes how much Candida Young Burnham has done for the audit. She was really crucial in this 22 audit and getting all the documents sent electronically to the auditors.
Awesome,
I
thank you.
want that to be
Yeah,
in the
no,
minutes.
definitely, make sure we get that in there. Thank you. Any other public comment on anything? All right, cool, thank you
If
so
anyone does
much.
have questions, we are always open. Email us, call us, get in touch with the superintendent's office.
Yep.
For our contact information, I'm glad to talk to anybody, anytime about anything. And it's at no cost. We don't bill you for time, we have a contract with you for a year, and we're there whenever you need us.
Awesome. Cool.
All right.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for having me.
All right. At this time, I kind of feel like CJ and Kaylee could get a quarter credit in accounting. If I will entertain a motion to flip-flop new business and continuing business, so we can deal with people who are here, and then we can take care of our business at the end. So if someone wants to make that
Yeah,
motion.
I'll make a motion that we rearrange the agenda for new business to come before new business.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, all right. Kaylee, CJ, take it away.
Thank you so much.
It's the class president and class trip and gift.
Yes, so for those of you that don't know me, I am CJ Martin. I'm the senior class president.
I'm Kaylee Phillips. I'm the senior class treasurer.
And we are just here today to get our class trip and class gift hopefully approved. I know we probably, all of us don't want to spend all night here, so I'll just kind of give you the basics. There'll be more information up here than what I tell you. So if you have any questions about either anytime, just feel free to ask. On Wednesday, June 14th, we are hoping to go to Six Flags, much like many classes before us, in the Massachusetts Six Flags, so it's the bigger one. It'll be a lot of fun. We're going to need 2 buses for all of the kids due to the size of our grade, and we will be having a bag check prior to leaving. That should start about half an hour or 45 minutes before we leave. We plan to get there around, a little bit before noonish, 10:30, 11. We'll have multiple times where every group of kids will go and check back in with their advisor or our advisors just to, make sure everybody's still okay and safe and, doing what they're supposed to be doing. We will then meet up back at the central location around 6 for a 6:30 departure. After this, we will be going to the Golden Corral Buffet, which is not very far. It's about 20 minutes. And then we hope to finish eating, be back on the bus by 8:30, and that would put us back at the high school around 11. Due to the money we have in our senior class account, we're not charging the students at all. The entire trip will be paid for, so they don't have to pay any of it, which I hope will be nice. And then we have 9 chaperones right now. Multiple of them actually came to me and asked if they could, go to the amusement park. So that gives us roughly a 1-to-8 ratio. And we do have Mr. Signala on there, so we do have some admin going as well.
I lost in the rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah.
Sim was one of the ones to come ask us. So, yes, I guess should I ask, are there any questions about a class trip? Any concerns?
Have fun.
I just have one, clarify for me, you said bag check.
Yes, ma'am.
And is bag check mean you're gonna check in your bags on the bus, or is somebody going through their bags looking for contraband?
We go through the bags.
That thing.
Yeah.
That's what you do, like,
Good.
okay. So
Sim is
thank
something, if they see an iPhone they want, they take it out.
No, it's a good thing
Sim
to have.
can't use it, we're good.
It's good. It's good.
And I forget, some of the parks have the guidelines about what kind of bags or water bottles or things that you can bring in, so
Yes.
you'll let students know.
Yes.
Yeah, we're having a class meeting, hopefully later this week. We're talking to Ms. Fleming about that, trying to compromise, and we will, give the students that type of information then.
I think it's awesome that you're doing this, that it's paid for, because that's what you guys work for all your years, so that way you can have a nice fun trip at the end. That's what you've been raising money for, and working concessions and doing all that, so that pays off. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Anything else on their trip?
Have a good time.
Yeah, have fun. All right.
And then our class gift. So we've noticed the concession booth inside, while very nice, could certainly use some upgrades. Maybe a popcorn machine that's not stained on the side and different things like that. So our big idea was to do a renovation, light renovation of the inside. We're not talking about tearing down walls or painting anything. We're just, looking to replace appliances, add things that maybe weren't there before. You can see a list of a bunch of different ideas we have. Some of them include like a slushy machine. I think we all thought that would be a big seller. A nice popcorn machine, like I was saying, and then just other miscellaneous things that I think could really bring a new glow to it. If this does get approved, the student council has planned to meet in West Lebanon around 5:30, and we are going to go on a nice shopping trip to go buy all those. And then Memorial Day weekend, I believe it is. Yep, that Saturday and Sunday, we will be deep cleaning that concession booth and replacing everything in there. And Mr. Flynn said he would be present in there to help us. So, yes, any questions or comments about that?
Questions on that?
Very nice.
Nice, very practical.
Yeah, we're planning to spend about $2,500 on the concession booth. So hopefully we can do it all night.
Yeah.
So, I do have a concern with concession booth, because I worked concessions a bunch this year. And so my concern is the popcorn machine works fine.
Yeah.
It just doesn't get cleaned. And that's really my concern with all this stuff. It's great, and I love that having a slushy machine, but I can envision it by the middle of basketball season not getting cleaned. Especially without controls in place, like who's going to take care of this? Like right now, it's very up in the air who controls that concessions booth. And so, I know Deb Davis in the office has the key and stuff, but multiple groups use it. Outside groups can use it, things like that. So I just want to think about all these things all the way through, because it's a nice idea. I love it, but I just want to think where is this going to be 5 years down the line? Is it sustainable? Things like that.
I think from our perspective is we always have students that potentially need community service hours. So that could be integrated really well into, a monthly routine, especially if there's food involved for sim. But that could be something that we look at of, setting up some kind of rotation. We have kids really that do many great things in the building throughout the day, whether it's mentoring or going to the middle school, and, Kaylee herself has gone into the food pantry and arranged things. So definitely that's something, it would be just setting up that schedule.
Okay. Yeah, if you feel okay with it, because, I've noticed ants, because you just got to work for ants, that sort of thing. That's all.
I think we noticed those too, and that's why we included deep cleaning.
Yeah, that's good. Are you looking at stuff to lock up and secure stuff, so that way each class can have a shelf or a locker or something like that?
Yeah.
I saw you saw some, new shelving.
Yeah, so we, we were looking at a couple different versions online, and I think the one we kind of settled on was with the just kind of a basic shelving unit with doors. That way, people aren't just randomly grabbing things, and minimum of 4 shelves, and we will have little placards on each that says 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, so they hopefully don't get all mixed up.
So one of the other things to keep in mind is that the classes are not the only groups that are using that. So making sure that there's space for whether it's music boosters or other boosters that are in there.
Science club.
Yeah.
Like multiple, every club I think runs at least one
Right.
session. Yeah.
Right. And then the other, I think that it's a great idea to think about some sort of monthly cycle of going in and cleaning it and getting that done, because that was also one of my concerns. Having something, one other thing to check before purchasing all of the types of things that might be plugged in is to make sure that the electrical outlets can actually support that. Everyone knows, like, at my house, you plug in, if you have the toaster, the microwave, the coffee maker, and the air fryer going at the same time, because they're all in one corner, someone's going to run downstairs and start shutting the stuff off and flicking the switch. So I want to make sure that it is, that it can be useful in the way that it's intended, so it's not throwing off a circuit breaker or something like that. So if there's a way that we could check to make sure that
and I don't think their intention is to really purchase all of the items.
Yeah, it's your idea.
Just some ideas.
Okay.
And if that's a conversation we can maybe have with facilities here, I can certainly find a time to sit down with Mr. Corrado or Pat and talk about that and see what they think.
There used to be on books, I don't know if there still is, there used to be a circuits class here that Shin used to teach.
He teaches an electrical class.
Okay. Perhaps it's a teachable moment to see what kind of, what's in there or not. I don't know how that fits in or not, but I haven't mentioned that. But yeah, I think this is it's a great idea, and trying to think of a way to better use that space so that everyone's not just like stepping over piles of stuff left by other groups is really important. And then thinking about how all the groups using it, there might be some central storage for things like not everyone needs to buy their own napkins or plates or something.
No.
Can we just all, if all the classes and all the clubs and boosters and things like that are using it, just make sure that you're replenishing something, on a regular basis. And that could be part of the checklist for a monthly kind of audit and cleaning.
Yeah.
I mean, there's also the question of their child labor regulations that they can't use mixers. I'm not quite sure of the spinning thing, and a slushy machine might. I'm going to call Primex and see if there's any restrictions on
our insurance
and any liabilities that we might be facing.
There's always an adult. Like when people are working in the stand, there's an adult.
Yeah.
That's true.
That's part of it, so it's not like.
There's no slicers, there's no deep fryers, so that's good. You guys aren't doing hand-carved deli meat or anything like that. So
Although that might go really
it'll
well.
go very well, I'm sure, and I would also just say, make sure that you have some way to designate that this is your class gift in that booth, because that also will maybe hopefully help people realize this is a gift that's another class gave. I'm going to respect this and treat this well, and that sort of thing.
So like a plaque on the outside of it.
Or just like a little thing like, concessions gift of, class 23 or whatever. So.
Well, that's definitely something to think about, because I don't think I even consider, designating it as our class.
It will help, and maybe you come up with this, get a little sticker, put it on the hot dog roller class. Whatever. That way, people know that this isn't just a piece of equipment. You guys thought about this. It's intentional, and eventually down the road we'll have to replace it. But this is a good start. So, cool. Any other questions for them? Any other comments, concerns?
We need a motion to, so I make a motion that we approve if there's no other question, make a motion to approve the class of 2023 trip, senior trip, and on June 14th, and also the senior gift in the concessions area.
Okay. Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Oh, you guys are the same.
Okay.
All right, okay. All right. Any other further comments? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? All right, you're good to go.
Awesome. Thank
Cool.
you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
All right, have fun on your trip.
I'll log out of this for you.
If
Seth's got it, I'm
who's
sure.
here.
Where's this at?
Thanks so much.
All right, up next on our agenda, we have Friends of Mascoma Destination Imagination donation of $2,500. Approval of that. So I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion that we approve the $2,500 donation from the Friends of Mascoma for the Destination Imagination.
Second?
I will second.
All right, Kathleen got that first. Okay. Many thanks to the Friends of Mascoma for this gift to help DI get to Kansas City. They are, I'm sure, getting ready to go. So, any comments, questions on this? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Abstentions. All right, that one's good to go. All right, up next we have student and athletic handbooks. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Ah! It does say IRS first, so I guess I'll have to go with that.
I can be home before they're done.
Love
Love you guys.
We know where you live.
I know. All right. I apologize for having to put my sunglasses back on, but I can't read without them. They're
Thank you for the cheat sheet.
I thought it would be helpful for the cheat sheet. On page 4 of the student handbook for IRS, we updated names and positions. We'll continue to do that once we've hired all the staff that we need. On page 5, we updated the school calendar so it matches with the dates that we have for this upcoming school year. The bell schedule, so it was a little confusing for a lot of teachers because it was all on one. So we split it, so there's a grade 5, so it shows where their core classes are, where their unified arts classes are. And then grade 6, grade 7, grade 8. So we just separated that out. And then the additional bell schedules like early release, delayed opening, and assembly schedules got moved to the next page. Arrival and departure time, we edited a little bit. Students go to their homeroom still. We find that it starts the day a lot nicer when they're calm and quiet, not have been running around in the gym. So they will go to their homerooms, but then they're allowed to come up and grab breakfast. With COVID being on the outskirts, they're allowed to go up and grab breakfast and go back and not have to have it delivered to their homerooms. We do have a student with severe food allergies, so we added in there that due to potential food allergies, students are not to wander their halls with food throughout the day. That's just for everyone's safety there. Page 11, the attendance piece, I changed it from phone call to email. I believe with the school messenger, we send it out via email, so it was just one simple change. Indoor recess, I just added that 5th and 6th grade students report to their homerooms for indoor recess, and that 7th and 8th grade go to the gym. And that students are not permitted to use their Chromebooks without the recess monitor's approval. Some classroom teachers do not want their kids on Chromebooks, so they've already set that standard, and we want the recess monitors to follow that. The other changes, we have the dress code policy, the school bus conduct rules, wellness, and the suicide prevention and response policies have all been updated by the school board, so I have updated those in our handbook. So that's it for our student handbook.
Any questions on the student handbook for IRS? All right, you want to go with athletic?
Sure.
All right, it's on the next. It's the next column, so yeah.
Yeah. So for the athletic handbook, just some small changes. We had a change in staff for cross country and track. Rick Courier is now at the high school. I anticipate he's probably going to the high school in the fall for cross country. So we just moved the grade levels to 6th, 7th, and 8th for cross country. He had a hard time this year with the number of 5th graders, and a lot of them didn't really want to run that far and through the woods, so they're just not quite ready. And so with new coaches, we wanted to make sure that they weren't put in a position where they can't see everybody all at the same time. And for track, again, with the changes in coaching staff, we moved it to 7th and 8th grade. They are doing track practice with the high school students, which has been very cool. They specialized it, which I think has been working out great for kids. So we have Rick and Ben Jones, who's one of our middle school coaches. They're doing the runners, so they train them. And then Dave Schindlinger's doing the throwing events. and Kyle Wilson is doing the jumping events. So they get more specialized attention, which seems to be helpful. But again, we want to make sure that we're putting our kids in a spot where they're going to be successful in 5th and 6th. Probably not a great idea with high schoolers. So those were the only changes to that I can book.
Cool. Questions on that?
I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I mean, if there's like a bunch of 5th graders that want to run, then maybe you have a 5th grade running club, you know, and yeah, like that. But I think this is a good plan, and my daughter plays track here at 9th grade, so it's been well. I think it's a good change. So, and it builds team camaraderie and gets you excited to continue into the high school. You know,
Right. It becomes one program,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
oh, it's just the middle school program, and now you're at the high school. So
You get consistency in coaching too. So, cool. Any questions on that one? Anything else? All right. We can approve them all at once together. So, if that works. Okay. All right. You're all set then. High school.
So everyone has this?
They do, they have it.
Oh, perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Everybody has the little cheat sheet.
My cheat sheet, apparently it's different from everyone else's. Now, I don't know if there was a miscommunication, but I did check because I panicked and someone said that everything didn't line up, but it does. So I don't know if you have the newest version, but I checked twice and everything does add up, okay? So, there were not a ton of changes to the student handbook, which is actually great for my first time doing it. I was actually very happy with that. So it is quite a long document. So on page 4, basically, of course, because I added a few things, I updated the table of contents. So the new student handbook, of course, will reflect that. On page 6, just generally, again, a lot of these are general changes. I updated the school calendar to reflect the dates that are accurate for next year, including graduation, snow days, all of that stuff. Okay? On page 9, I just keep scrolling to keep myself going, guys. On page 9, so I basically just did the command where it changed anything that said plus portals to Alma. So that basically shows up on page 9 and 10 for student and parent responsibilities to check, rather than plus portals, to check now Alma to make sure their grades are up to date. On page 10, I changed the library and media program hours from 7:30 to 3:30 to 7:30 to 4. So they are staying an extra half an hour after for tutoring and all of that. On page 17, before the section talking about specific behaviors, I added the MTSSB behavioral procedural flow chart, just because, again, it does talk about MTSSB in the student handbook, so we did not until this year have the flow chart, so that is now in there. On page 21, so we changed around sports a little bit, but no big deal. So again, when it talks about actual sponsored school sports or official school sports, this year we added bass fishing and indoor track as an official recognized school sport, and we took out spirit from that because we do not have, again, spirit is now, so the next one for page 22, club spirit is now added as a club rather than an official sport. So after page 25, we have a bunch of pages to go, right? So basically there were 4 updated policies, and I just took the old policies out, added the new policies in, and as far as going over the policies, what I can see for the changes are basically just the dates in which they were first and second reviewed. So again, so page 74, the student dress code. Page 76, the school bus conduct rules. Page 106, wellness. And page 116 is suicide prevention and response. So all of the old policies were taken out and updated with new policies. Any questions about the student handbook changes? Okay. Thank you.
Your numbers lined up too, by the way,
Yes.
on mine, so it's all good.
I know.
Cool.
I checked.
That's the
I
difference.
was in a panic. I'm not gonna lie. That freaks me out sometimes.
This is the difference
so.
between a PDF versus a Google Doc
Yeah.
that is
Yes.
editable.
All right, and athletic handbook.
I have it.
All right.
Because, yeah. In looking at it, Steve did make a few changes. He highlighted all the changes. You know, there was a few things related to physicals, looking at 2 years. There was a, hold on, let me get all there was a piece related to, we didn't change any of the conduct or any of those type of things. And there was something related to concussion protocol and looking at that, or impact testing. So he highlighted everything. There was really no major changes.
Yeah. Yeah, there's not a lot of yellow in here as I'm scrolling through.
Yeah.
So, just some things. Boo-doo-boo-boo-boo. All right. Any questions on that?
So I do have, I would like us to think about not having a 2 year. 2 year I think is a little bit too long. Moving to 1 year, the 12 months for annual physicals, is something that, you know, if we think about what was presented from the YRBS study, the only reason that we have such a high percentage of students that see their doctors at least once a year is because we have an athletic requirement for an annual physical. And with adolescent health, it's just so critical a time. And so Steve asked me about this, and I didn't have a chance to get back to him about it, but I know that one of the biggest concerns and headaches from being on the parent side of things is that insurance is such a pain in being strict about the 12-month thing. So I wonder if we could consider an 18-month that would allow for for a little bit more flexibility in that sequencing, and we would get through that opportunity of every 12 months for insurance sake, which is, I think, one of the biggest headaches in doing that. Because we moved to Family ID to help with the tracking side of things, I think it's a little less onerous now than it was, say, 5 years ago, when this was like a spreadsheet that someone had to update manually. But my biggest concern is making sure that we have touch points in place that we can gently prod and encourage wellness checks for overall wellness, for mental health, because that's been incorporated into more and more primary care, substance misuse screenings, other type of adolescent health issues that come up that really, they might be the only opportunities for kids to see a healthcare provider. And so I am very much a proponent of not bumping it all the way out to 2 years, but I can see a 15 or 18 month time to allow for that flexibility within insurance.
No, and I definitely understand that. Definitely understand that, especially recently. I think that that's very reasonable, even if it's a year and then your appointments you have to have an appointment by such and such a date. That's the way it always was, because we recognize how that happens. You know, you can only do it once a year. I'm just typing a message to Steve right now that needs to be adjusted. Would you like it brought back to the board?
Has it
No, I
recently-
think
We can tweak it right here and
You
just
can
say.
approve
I mean,
with that change.
I thought it's been one for.
It's been one since, that was one of the things,
So it just
it's
recently
been,
changed.
that was one of the things that was one of,
It's really
like my
hard.
first year on the board, it was
Yeah.
one of the things, from a public health perspective and background, that was really important to me. And I think it has benefited our kids and our kids' health overall. And so I don't really want to backpedal to 2 years, even though that's kind of a minimum standard. Kids are just growing too fast for that. And like I said, I think that the main driver of because we have such a small school community, and such a high percentage of our students that participate in athletics, I think it's a real driver of healthcare utilization. And you know, and especially not being able to fill that athletic trainer position where we would maybe have someone on site
Yeah.
to help with concussion protocol, to help with return to play for other things, you know, not just for injuries, but overall health. Because when we had that athletic trainer coverage, we incorporated information not only about concussions and concussion protocol and what to look for, but also nutrition, sleep.
It's a
substances.
wellness, I mean, when I in my own, it was a wellness child's visit,
Yeah.
so, yep.
Yeah.
Nope, not a problem, I will take care of that right now.
What do you guys think? You gotta think 15 months, 18 months? Because like I look at 15 months and I'm like, okay, there's a kid. So if you get like your exam in August and you go out for a fall sport, you can do sports in the winter and the spring, and then you can do them again the following fall. But if you want to do another winter sport, then you would have to get another physical.
Right.
So that's where 15 months makes sense to me.
I lean more towards 18 because when was the last time you tried to make an
And
appointment?
that's the other
That's
side of
true.
it.
The
Yeah.
average appointment for a wellness is pushed out at minimum 9 months right now in the nervous system.
All right, then.
If you're not being canceled for more urgent things.
Right.
So
But we can, I mean, you can go to any convenience care for $25
Right,
and at
yeah.
least have your
Right.
student checked
Right,
out
that
for
makes
their
sense.
heart rate, their weight, you know,
That's good to know.
those type of things, so,
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's other options.
Yeah.
I would like to put to him 1 year, or max 15 months.
Whatever.
I would be fine.
Whatever. I mean, if you want to bring it back, but if you have to get this printed, then I understand.
Mm-hmm.
But we can just say with that change.
Any way to put extraordinary circumstances go to the
Athletic director.
athletic.
Everything is an extraordinary circumstance, I'm all about black and white.
Right, yes.
Sorry.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
right.
I've had family, as the AD next door, I've had families say, I know I got the email, we can't get in, this
Right,
is
right.
my date of
Right.
when
Yeah,
our appointment
right.
is.
At least
And
you
I've
have a
given them
date.
that grace period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I get it.
as long as you have a date, like,
Yeah.
that's most important.
Yeah.
And they've been great about bringing in the paperwork or having it faxed over as soon as they have that, so
Yeah.
we can update.
So there's
paperwork.
flexibility
Yeah.
in the system, yeah.
I would be happy with 15 or 18 months. I mean,
It's the email sent.
yeah.
It'll be
Those
taken
things.
care of.
As long as it's not
1
2
year
years.
or 15.
Yeah.
It'll be taken care of.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
I
mean,
just-
those physicals catch things that
Yeah.
Yeah.
they might
I
not
agree.
see. And-
Especially a teenager changes
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I look at my freshmen to my seniors.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it allows them the chance.
Yeah.
Freshmen we knew nothing about it.
Yeah.
Right.
It was just a physical.
Yeah.
And because of, because of the, privacy laws and everything, it allows students to have that time with a little bit of anonymity, like their parents not in the room with them anymore, when
Wait,
you're in
we're
high
not
school.
supposed to go in the room anymore?
No, they kick you out. Like, you go in there,
Yep.
you say a couple things, what do
Yeah.
you worry about? You're out.
And I will say the Mascoma Health Center has been also very helpful in getting my kids in there for physicals and stuff like that. And that's also, a nice resource here in town. So any more we can do with them is awesome. So, cool.
I think it will be important that we track this data too. What I don't want it to become is, oh, I have 15 months, so I'm going to take all of those 15 months, and then my appointment is in 2
Right.
months.
No.
Right.
So that's why I feel comfortable doing a year with the appointment made, because it could end up 15, 18 months. Personally, that's how I feel. Like,
Yeah.
that way it's consistent and it's not gray.
Yeah.
Like, it's easier to say 12 months and then it does get to an appointment out.
Yeah.
Because I don't want their appointment to miss the season. If I have a football
Right.
player who hasn't had it on file, I don't want that to happen.
Right.
Right.
And the Family ID system is excellent for sending out those reminders because
Yeah.
it tells you all of that.
Yeah.
So we'll keep track of it this year, and
Okay.
if there are issues and people are out of compliance and starting to look at that 2-year mark, next year in the handbook, it'll go back to 1 year.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. All right.
Thank you.
So do you want to hold back the high school athletic book, or are you going to put it through with 15 months?
I'm going to put it through with 1 year.
1 year.
And
Okay.
set
So
with
strike
an
that.
extenuating date.
Okay.
If it has, with a date on file beyond that. So
Okay.
it could be 15 months. I think it's just easier going with 1 year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Leave it status quo.
All
Yeah.
right, so strike references. All right, so that, everyone clear on that, but that'll be changed. Okay. Any other comments on athletic handbook high school? All right, so I entertain a motion to approve all of these.
Make a motion that we approve the IRS and high school student and athletic handbooks as presented.
With the change.
With,
Yeah.
with the changes as presented. With suggested changes as
Yes.
presented.
And any second?
I'll second.
All right, Kathleen, second. All right, any further discussion on these? All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions. All right. Cool, thank you. All right, yeah, let us know how that goes.
That wasn't that scary.
I know, it wasn't. It really
He
wasn't.
needs to come more often. That's the
Yeah.
thing. If he comes more often, it's less scary.
Less scary.
Do you have to talk about the wellness minutes? No, just kidding.
All right, so we are gonna look at, up next on our agenda here, we have school board retreat dates. Typically, we pick a Sunday in June, but we've done Saturdays before as well.
Before,
Yes.
before our high school administrators leave,
Oh.
could we maybe, because it will be important,
Oh, yeah.
our retreat date to know about senior week activities. I believe because graduation is the 16th and but I want to say the senior awards and scholarship night is on the 4th.
Yes.
So that's like, it used to be the senior week started with the scholarships and awards on that Sunday, and then like that was senior week and graduation was the end of it. But now it's like 2 weeks of stuff. And so just want to make sure there's no other senior or school related functions that might be popping up so that we're not double booking ourselves.
I have all of the dates.
Sorry.
They probably set the awards ceremony long.
No, I have like I put it in our staff week at a glance so that everybody knows what the heck we're doing.
Okay.
Because life is chaos.
Yes.
It's like hold your breath, hold on, taking notes to the end here.
I know, yeah.
Let me look that up real quick. I apologize.
That's all right. Should have given you a heads
What?
up.
I know.
Does look like the scholarship night is on the 4th.
Yes,
Okay.
that is.
Did you find it a week at a glance?
I found it on the calendar.
Oh.
So well done.
The
Yeah,
4th,
it's on the calendar.
Right, it's been on the calendar, and that's, as an agency that gives scholarships, that's the date that I
And I
have
have
on my
a
calendar for that. It's just all the other stuff.
Yeah, I have all of those dates.
Okay, awesome.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
My computer's just, Craig's not taking it though.
Amanda, are there dates that don't work for you? Or do you
Typically,
have preferred dates?
I was, usually you back it to that night so that you all can attend the scholarship event.
That's true, we've done it.
We have done that.
We've done that in the past, yeah. I forgot about that. We could do that again, for sure.
If people are
Talking about
available on the
June
4th.
Yeah, June 4th,
Yeah, Sunday the 4th.
yeah. Because that starts at what?
Yeah.
5? 6?
4.
Oh, that starts at 4
So,
in the afternoon.
okay, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, the 4th is scholarship night at 4. And then we have the district retirement party. The 7th is the last day for seniors at Hartford. The 12th is the last day of school for seniors. June 13th is the yearbook dedication and department awards. 14th is senior class trip. Junior's last day at Hartford is the 16th. And then graduation.
They're doing a walkthrough of the elementary schools and
Yes, we
graduation.
will definitely do
Awesome.
that. Yeah,
And probably the car parade again.
Car parade.
So,
I don't know.
Or
What
not
now?
gonna
I
do
don't
that
want
this
to
year.
do the car parade.
I think the car parade, they've approached me about the car parade, and I think it's time that we look at the car parade differently if we're going to do it. It's become a little out of control when people are sitting in lawn chairs in the back of trucks. That
Yeah.
gets a little bit worrisome to me.
Well, if you're driving all around the district
Right.
as opposed to just like 1 mile.
So we're gonna look at maybe a modified version of it or something a little bit different. Remember last year we only had the cooperation from the Enfield PD. So we did not have cooperation, they did not have manpower for the other towns to help us. And it is kind of critical, right? It's a bigger deal when you have all the fire departments. I do believe Canaan Fire and Rescue were part of it, but it's a bigger deal. I kind of like the parade. I just need to find a way to do it more safely.
Yeah.
So we'll be thinking about that, because I know the kids do like it,
Yeah.
but I cannot have people in lawn chairs in the back of pickup trucks.
Oh, and
down
hanging out
Route 4.
outdoors.
Yeah.
and,
Your insurance company won't.
It's yeah.
So we're looking at that.
Okay, cool.
We'll do the costume.
And you'll come all the way, yeah, I mean, once they're on the road.
Those kids are leaving anyways.
No, I need them. They're 17.
Yeah, we need them to graduate, that's the thing, so. All
Okay,
right.
great. So nothing on the 10th. Good. That's,
Okay.
So that is another option if we need one.
So what do people think? What do people think? And where, do you want a morning or afternoon?
Well, did you want to do it, back it up?
We can back it up to that thing, yeah.
Start at noon? and-
Yeah. We can start at
But
noon.
you know, we do it on
Thank
transport,
you.
and we get it out of the way, then you don't have to worry about
Yeah.
other conflicts coming up.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that work for you, Amanda?
Sure.
We do like the morning of the 4th at noon,
Yeah.
or like 11:30, maybe we'll get some lunch or something like that.
Yeah, that would be nice.
And do you guys want to meet here, or do you want to meet somewhere else?
I just send me here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm fine meeting here.
Yeah.
We can
Keep
sit
it
in the
simple.
cafeteria
Yeah.
for a change of venue.
I think they might set something up in the cafeteria
Oh, right.
for after the
Oh, you're right.
scholarship night.
Yeah,
So
because
we
they.
would be here in the library. We could be in the community room though.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, usually
We can
they'll
get in
do like, they'll have the seniors come earlier than the award ceremony so they practice it and then they have like a ice
Yeah.
cream party or something.
I don't know.
It's what they've done in the past.
Okay.
So,
Um,
yeah, that's,
Is the tent going to be up on upper landing?
Ooh, good
Like-
question. If they set the tent up, we could certainly sit outside.
Yeah, I don't know. So
Yeah,
I'll
depending on
book
the
the
weather.
community room
Yeah.
and I'll book it for noon. I don't anticipate we would need more than 3.5, 4 hours
No,
to do this.
no.
But I will look at lunch too.
Okay. Yeah, we have room in our budget to buy some lunch type stuff.
and
Any preference on lunch, or you want me to surprise you? Have to surprise all of us?
Ziggy's did a good job on those sandwiches, the roll-ups and things like that.
Oh, yeah, Ziggy's is fine.
sure.
Yeah,
That's
I'm not picky. So.
Predator wraps. Yeah. Did we do it last year with them?
I don't know. I have no idea. What?
What, Ziggy's?
Did we do it last year? No.
Not
No.
for that meeting.
No,
No.
different.
It
Something
was a
different.
different meeting.
So, all right. I don't think we need to make a motion if we just say that's fine.
Yeah.
If everybody's good with the 4th at noon here in the high school community room, we'll do that.
Does that work for you, Candace?
Cool.
Excellent.
Awesome. All right, and we will make sure Vicki and Brewster know. So, all right, back up to continuing business. Student representative's not here, that's fine. Wellness committee, you have the, whatchamacallit in your packet. Danielle, you want to give an update?
Sure, I'll give an update that the minutes are in the packet because I was unable to attend.
That's all right, you can read.
It was a short meeting, so it didn't work for me to try, like, for them to try to get online, for me to get online to join them, so.
And you were not alone in being absent, so.
Yes, yeah. There's a number of food pantry type updates there, and that was the majority of the meeting. Like, yep.
So they're looking for a new rep for the student rep for that committee. Yeah, I would love to see this getting more next year, in the next year, get wide engagement. So.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Any questions on that? All right. EIC committee meeting minutes. You have your minutes in the packet. Hope, look at that, you're in the chair. All right, Hope. All right, go ahead and review those.
No, our first kind of, we looked at the calendar. I wish Tina was here. We were trying to see if the times and dates were mostly available for Tina because it looked like she had a conflict. So Angel was going to check on that.
Okay.
So we might be doing a little bit of revising to that. The main bulk of the was to look at the Ed 30626 changes to the Holocaust curriculum. I think basically they had looked at the sequence and the scope and pretty much determined that they would need relatively few tweaks to make that all happen. So, and then we also looked at, which was really great, and I looked at the hot link in the agenda, you know, it didn't really, Angel gave us some, you know, inserts or whatever. And this one was really nice, and I think everybody probably would want this one, which was the Mascoma pre-K curriculum review cycle. So
nice.
we got a chance to talk about that a little bit. Which shows, you know, when the social studies starts and all the other ones, and the circular nature of this cycle that's basically ongoing. We talked a little bit about, which is necessary in the minutes, that, you know, how it's for the school board, you know, where it fits into the evaluation cycle, which really doesn't start, you know, until you're 24, 25, and that all of that, I mean, so that is a little bit, you know, in terms a little bit later on. And that we also talked about that we were hoping that the quarterly committee reports from all the schools could kind of be looked at a little bit and to be kind of more aligned in terms of what they're reporting to us as far as data for evaluations. Like we don't get one NEWA report for this school one day, and, you know, so Angel was going to take a look at that with the administrators.
Cool. That's good. That's a really good goal. I think that would be very handy for starting next year.
And then, yeah, no, that was it.
Cool.
And then next time, committee assessment goals and state data platform. We're going to look at the I-platform. I think it's called I-platform, the state platform. I remember thinking to myself, I'll do that webinar, and I didn't. So that'll be good.
Oh, I've seen,
You know what
that's
I'm
right.
talking about?
Yeah. I've seen that in the, yes.
Which the state, I don't even know if you can get to it on the state platform.
I don't know.
Anyways, so we're going to take a peek at that.
Cool. Any questions for Hope on that? All right. Cool. Superintendent's report.
You do have my report in your packet. It's a very nice, if you had a chance to see the IRS Drama Club production of Over the Moon, it was lovely. A very nice email from a parent, Tara Lenahan. I put a quoted excerpt from her email to me, just really nice, positive. Not only was the play wonderful, not only was the community involvement wonderful, but she just felt like our kids and our whole district just fostering community, stepping in to help. So I just took a very powerful little paragraph that she wrote and added that to you all. Very nice to hear some of the good things, right? Typically we hear what we're not doing right. It's just so nice to hear what we are doing right. So I wanted her and the public to know that I really appreciate that. Talk a little bit about hiring. We are in full swing of hiring. The teacher shortage that plagues the state continues to plague us. Discussions with one of the candidates that you will see presented to you tonight in non-public. Her and I reminisced about when we applied for jobs a few years ago, and you were up against 200 people. Now you're lucky to get 10. 10 is a huge pool. So it's just the state of, you know, public education in the country, if you will. Also, I did not add on here, but we did receive the Renew America Schools grant. It was the portion of the grant, so we applied for two things. We applied for $100,000 worth of funding for a person to be an energy champion, if you will, in our district. So we then also applied for about $500,000 worth of projects, mostly centered around Indian River School. We were one of 25 schools in the country to receive the $100,000 for a person. So we are working on accepting that grant. I will be talking to Jean Shaheen's office, Senator Jean Shaheen's office, about how we're going to use that. They're pretty proud of the fact that our school received it. The next closest school was Vermont. There was a school in southern Vermont that will be receiving it, and then I believe it's out of New England.
Yep, nobody else in New England. I looked at the map.
It's quite an achievement.
Well done.
So quite an achievement. Thanks to Harrison Little
Yes.
for writing that grant for us. We just didn't have time. We wanted it, but you know, people are pretty busy, and he was happy to do that, and really speaks to his ability, you know, to write and to still support Mascoma.
Yeah, totally. Thank you, Harrison, and thank you for everything.
And I'll add the information, next board
Yep.
packet, we'll put that in as information.
Well, I figure we'll do a press release and all that fun
Yep,
stuff.
I've already got that in the works.
Big story in the Valley News, eventually. Eventually. Any questions for Amanda? All right, cool, thank you. Business Administrator's report.
Good evening, my report is in your packet. As you can, the $2,500 donation from Friends of Mascoma for DI we've already dealt with. It's very nice to see financial support for these kind of special extracurricular things. So thank you very much, Friends of Mascoma.
Yeah.
There's an updated capital improvement plan in the packet as well. That's been a moving target the past couple of weeks with some edits and things shifting around and some formulas. So, but that's the latest version. It's looking pretty good. You will notice that the warrant article estimations have gone up. This year we did 250,000. That might be closer to your new normal as you go from year to year. So that's something to just to keep an eye on. And also the financials for April are in your packet as well. One thing to keep in mind, in the back of your mind, as you look at the financials and you look at the budget balance, is that we've kind of shut off new purchase orders for the rest of the year. So hopefully, as we start to clean them up and close them out, the encumbrance will go down and the budget balance will go up. So just that's something to just keep in mind as you look at those numbers.
There.
And I do have one technical issue that I need to solve. So the Department of Revenue Administration, when we do the budget, default budget, MS-22, all of those things, we have to submit a certificate of posting. So I looked at what I did last year, and I used Kamala's certificate of posting that she signs, saying that we posted the warrant and the budget. So I posted this on March 1st, and it seemed fine. So this year, I just heard back from the Department of Revenue Administration, and they want board signatures for the warrant, and it's the same.
Okay.
I don't know if they missed it last year and I did it wrong, or if they're just getting a little bit more stringent on board signatures, but it's all the same information, the dates, the times, the places.
No, I saw it posted in mine. I saw it posted this
Down on
year.
time, in the right places.
Thank you.
What are we actually signing?
This is signing that the warrant was posted. This is the warrant, and that it was posted at that it was posted, right?
Posted at all the voting places.
That's where we had it.
Sessions.
Normally we would sign off on this ahead of time, but
Well, I'm not sure you've ever had to sign off.
I don't remember ever signing off on this. But
Well, that's why
there's,
it's
Kamala has.
yeah,
Yeah, this I've never.
'Cause you're the clerk of the school
signed off
board.
on it before.
so you attest
We've
that
never
everything
had
was
this
posted.
That's correct. And she has already signed and attested to that,
Yeah.
but they're refusing to accept that.
Well, I don't like
They
that.
just rejected it yesterday.
Well, I don't like that.
Okay. Luckily, I have a
How
board
dare
meeting
you.
tomorrow night.
All right, fine. Okay, we'll sign that. Cool. Anything else on that? Not anything else for Rob?
I'm good,
All
actually.
right. Any questions for Rob?
Cool.
Quarterly reports, I did not see those in our packets, but I didn't know if we had paper copies of Butler's Bus and Cafe Services, or we just did not get them yet.
We did not get them.
Okay, so we'll put those till next time, and I expect to receive those. So, all right, agenda items for next meetings, committee reports, support staff nominations, CES and EVS emergency operating procedures, and their handbooks for the schools, resolutions for the school board association, general assurances, board retreat topics, set lunch rates for next year, and their June PD newsletter. That sounds pretty full. Anything else people can think of that we would do? This meeting will be on the 23rd of May. So I think anything else we do like the last meeting in May. I can't. All right.
The only thing, will we be wrapped up with strategic planning by then yet?
No.
It'll be the
White.
When is our last strategic plan?
June 1st.
Yes.
I'm hoping that we can eliminate that. I feel
Yeah.
like we're very, very close.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that
Next
by
week's
the time we get
Yeah.
to the school board retreat, that we'll be able
Yeah.
to discuss the strategic plan.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
I don't see that we're gonna need to do a June 1st meeting.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
feel
I
like
hope
we're,
not.
Yeah.
we should be wrapping up.
Yeah, because we're meeting this Thursday, and then next Thursday and the Thursday after,
Yeah.
right? I think, yeah.
Yeah.
Excuse me. All right, public comment. Any public comment?
Just one, I agree with what Rob said.
Yes.
You need to make 250,000 the new normal for
Yeah,
CIP.
I think you were there, finance
Yeah,
facilities. He
you
said that.
got to.
Oh, excuse me.
Especially as this building, gets older,
Yep.
it needs to be the new normal.
Yep, and I've been saying this, at least now I see some projects on the CIP for this building.
Yeah.
But I would like to, as we start looking at what is fiscal year 2030,
Right.
this building will be 14 years old at that point.
Right.
So it's gonna need
Yeah.
the things that buildings need, and so, as long as we're thinking, and we're not going, oh no, we forgot about this building, so.
Yeah. And putting it on as a warrant article for capital reserve is
Yeah.
the right
The
way to do it.
Yeah, I think people appreciate that, and people respect
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
We're saving money, we're socking it away, we have a plan, and we're being responsible, so. Cool. Not presenting them with, oh no, we need to budget. So. All right, that being said, second page of the agenda. Personnel, do we have personnel resignations, nominations for public right now?
We do.
Thanks.
Cool.
So you do have a list of nominations and some resignations. You will see contracts were due about a week ago to be returned to. We did have some staff that have decided to leave. Some for retirement, some for moving. They're physically moving out of state. So all good reasons. We will do a brief exit interview with those people should they want to have that talk with us in HR. So you'll see that we are also having in Tamika Childs, will be going from 6th grade teacher to ABA para for us. That's very helpful. Beth Staker will be continuing to do some math tutoring. Her funding had previously come from ESSER CARES funding, and that has dried up. So Tina has been pretty creative and unable to find a full-time paraprofessional. So instead, we'll be using the money from Anne LaBrie's full-time paraprofessional position to fund Beth Stager for 4 hours or so a day to work with kids on math.
I think that's great.
And then we do have Caroline Christie as our social worker, resigning, Patricia Guitar as a special educator resigning, Sarah Hill as an elementary, she's currently a kindergarten teacher at CS resigning, and Trinity Vasberg as the math teacher at the high school resigning.
Okay, all right. Entertain a motion on those.
I'll make a motion that we accept the nominations and resignations as presented.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Kathleen with a second. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions. All right, up next, we do have non-public for the purposes of B, C, and I.
So I do
Right.
believe we can remove one of those. I don't think Craig is going to attend
Okay.
for cybersecurity.
Fair enough. I'm here.
Oh,
We failed our cybersecurity test. He was able to sneak in.
I told you to come, but you were hiding behind me.
No, he's been
I
here
didn't
all
see him at all.
Hasn't missed anything.
All right, entertain a motion to go to non-public.
Make a motion to go into non-public.
All right, there was,
Second.
Kathleen with a second. Kathleen.
Yes.
Tim, yes. Danielle.
Yes.
Hope.
Yes.
Candace.
Yes.
All right, we are in non